Welcome to everyone joining us on Facebook Live for our coffee with Ros Scott. Ros Scott is ALDE Party Vice President and also a Liberal Democrat member of the House of Lords in the UK Parliament. She's here in our Brussels HQ today because our Bureau meeting is meeting this afternoon. So Ros, thank you so much for participating in the interview today. You have an interesting week coming up in the House of Lords. The Liberal Democrats, of course, have a very strong position and presence in the House. What role does the House of Lords as a whole play in the Brexit debate, and how can it limit a hard Brexit?
Okay, so the House of Lords is sort of a constitutional nonsense, really. I mean, we're unelected, we're appointed for life, and we kind of deny ourselves. I mean, we have a lot of power to hold things up, and we can block things. It's a power that we tend not to use because we don't have a written constitution, but we generally accept the view that it's our job to ask the government to think again, to scrutinise their proposals. But if the government is determined to do something, we say, you know, you've been elected, you're the Democratic House, so we'll let you get on with it. And that, I think, is pretty much where the Lords is going to be in this. You know, we'll have lots of amendments tabled to the very short bill that is in the House of Commons, and the government may well be defeated in votes, but then they'll take it back to the House of Commons. The House of Commons will undo what we've done, and we get into a process called ping pong. But ultimately, I think we'll end up letting the government kind of have its way because they're democratically elected.
So given that, what would you say to anyone who says that the process is rather undemocratic for anyone to vote against the Brexit bill, either in the Commons or in the Lords?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, the answer to that is quite straightforward. I mean, I think pretty much all of us accept that the British people made the decision, fairly narrowly, but they made the decision they did. But what they didn't vote for was any particular version of Brexit. There was no debate about in or out of the single market or any of these things. And so we think, given that there were no numbers involved, no costs understood, really very little about the implications, you know, we believe that when we finally get a deal on the table and it becomes clear exactly what it is that is on offer, we think the British people should have another say to say either, yeah, okay, let's go with this, or no, we've looked over the edge of the cliff and we don't want to do it.
Yes, and this has been very much the message, I suppose, of the Liberal Democrats.
Yes.
You've had a very strong message saying to all your new members, you've positioned yourselves as the real opposition, if you like, against Brexit. This has been shown in the string of by-election success that you've had as well. What impact do you think all these new members and this by-election success will have on the Liberal Democrats going forward?
Well, you know, after a period where things have, you know, been a bit difficult for us, I think the impact on the existing members is really electric. You know, we're kind of seeing people joining us in their thousands is very, very motivating for us who are already there. For the new members, I mean, they are angry. They are really angry at what is being done to them and their country and to, you know, to their children's prospects, and they're really keen to get involved. And I think what is really crucial about it is this, that, you know, Labour have been increasingly weak since the end of the Blair era, and the Lib Dems have not been in a strong position for the last few years. So for the Tories, all the electoral challenge comes from the right in their own party and, of course, UKIP. They haven't had to worry about kind of keeping their party in the middle because they see no challenge from the centre and left. And it's really important that, you know, that we grow quickly, and that we're seen as a real threat to Conservatives from the other side of the debate, because it's only that way that over the next few years, as we make these big decisions about how to Brexit and ultimately, you know, do we press that final button, they need to know that there is a strong and credible threat coming from the other side.
You say a lot of Liberal Democrat members are angry right now, especially the new ones. I think we feel the same in some of our members of the ALDE party. How can these people get involved in our fight?
I think there's lots of ways that people can get involved. I mean, you know, if you're eligible, then, you know, join the Liberal Democrats. Obviously, you know, if you're already individual members, that's great, but otherwise, you know, join the individual members. Keep in touch with what's going on. You know, both the ALDE party and the Lib Dems have very good websites, a strong social media presence, so there will be individual campaigns that you can get involved on, things like Erasmus, on things like reciprocal rights, environmental protections, all of these things, because, you know, this isn't just about Europe itself, this is about the kind of country that we want to live in. You know, whether we want to turn Great Britain into some sort of supersized Singapore with no social protections, with no environmental regulations, because that's the real Tory agenda. And they don't like Europe because Europe stops them doing that, and we have to protect that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I believe we can now turn over to Facebook for some of our questions that are coming in live. Firstly, we have a question from Oliver. Oliver says, what kind of activities could individual members in the UK organise to support the Lib Dems in their fight to stay in the EU?
Okay. Well, first of all, you know, if you're not a Lib Dem member, then do join the Lib Dems, because the press are beginning to really notice the increased membership, so it's a very, you know, very obvious thing. We've got some parliamentary by-elections going on right now, but crucially we have a lot of local elections that are going on in May. Now, I know that, you know, what happens to your local school might feel a million miles away from Brexit, but actually everybody is going to be watching to see how the Lib Dems doing in local elections. So, you know, get involved as a candidate, get involved as a campaigner, and let's help to make these next set of local elections really powerful for us, so that people begin to take us more seriously. And then I think, you know, whatever skills and background anybody has, there is a way in which the party can use them, because, you know, we rely entirely on our volunteers. We have a very small paid central force, so, you know, whatever your skills, we can use them.
Great. We'll take a couple more questions. We have a positive comment from Mo here. It's well worth this to watch this live.
Well, thank you very much. It's well worth being here.
So, they're on the way. We have a couple more questions. They're coming in now, I believe.
Right. We're answering faster than people can type,
I think we are.
Yes.
All right.
But yeah, it's very easy, I think, for people to find their local constituency, their local campaigns.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if you happen to live in one of those areas where, you know, there's maybe not so much going on, then I think you can find a nearby area where there is more happening. But, you know, fundamentally, if you're in an area where there's not much going on, then you can be the person, the catalyst who makes it happen. And you know, there's huge amounts of material on the party website about setting up street stalls, about running campaigns, about organising petitions. And I think, you know, there's a lot of this. This is not about saying to people, we think you were wrong or we think you were stupid in your vote. I think what we've got to do is say, okay, this is what it could mean, and you know, really try and raise that awareness of just how difficult this can be.
Yeah. Going back to the European side of things now, we have a very interesting question that's just come in from Anders. He asks, do we have any idea of the kind of rights the European Commission is expected to grant UK nationals living in the EU?
Well, the short answer to that is no, we don't. I mean, the British government have been, you know, very cagey about that, and in fact, some ministers have more or less implied that this is going to be part of the negotiation. You know, which is sort of at one level, I guess, is true, but they've expressed it in a way that is almost like people are being held hostage, both UK citizens in the EU and EU citizens in the UK, and that is, you know, not at all respectful of anyone. I suspect on this one issue there will be a sensible and rational outcome to a discussion that recognises these reciprocal rights, because it's one of those where I can see nobody wins from doing anything really stupid. So I think there probably will be some sort of sensible accord about reciprocal rights, and I think we've got to hope that that extends to things like the European healthcare system, because millions of Brits go on holiday to Europe, and you never think about having to take out insurance because you've got the European health card.
Yeah.
And you know, last week I had a debate in the House of Lords about the impact of Brexit on people with disabilities. And it's a real problem. If you've got a disability, you need access to healthcare more, but it's very hard to get insurance. So I think, you know, I think that's one where clearly, you know, and the government have kind of softened a bit on that. Recent weeks they've said coming to an agreement on that is going to be a priority.
Yeah. And I guess there's no huge reason to panic immediately. These things are going to take time.
No, they're not. I mean, they do take it. I should say nobody's going to be thrown out tomorrow. I mean, there have been some very strange stories emerging from the Home Office, but I think that's more about competence actually than about any. I don't think there's sort of going to be any serious moves to throw people out. I mean, there are large sectors of our economy that are utterly dependent on migrant workers, and so I don't see that. And if the Brits are sensible in the UK, then I think we're giving nobody any reason to treat Brits any differently who are working in other European countries.
Yeah, that's reassuring. We have a question now from Palumi. He asks, could there be any kind of associate membership for those UK nationals living abroad who want to stay in the EU?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a number of options. So what used to be sort of Brussels Liberal Democrats, and now they're kind of expanding their reach, and it's Brussels and Europe. So there is a link through them where you could, if you're a British citizen living anywhere in Europe, that you can join that, and that's a prelude to setting up bigger campaigning groups. So you've got that avenue. If you're not a British voter, then you could join the individual members, and that is obviously that's ALDE more broadly than just the Lib Dems. But I mean, it's a good campaigning base. So yeah, I mean there are options there.
Yeah, I think that will be reassuring for a lot of people. Nothing's going to really happen overnight, as it were.
I think that's right. And what people feel they need is a voice now, I think, more than anything.
Yeah. So we've got another question, this time from Pete. He says, as an ALDE individual member living in Italy with a UK passport, I am considering taking Italian citizenship. What will the Lib Dems do in the House of Commons to ensure that I can retain my rights?
Well, the Lib Dems in the House of Commons have tabled a whole bunch of amendments. And I think altogether there's about 150. Now, I have to be honest, I don't know what's being said about a specific question about a UK national living somewhere else who wants to change their passport. I mean, I haven't seen it in that detail, so I can't. But I know there are amendments down that are very much about in this whole area of reciprocal rights, and that's something that the House of Lords will very much be taking on board, because they tend, on the whole, in the Lords to be more internationalist in outlook, and I think they will. I mean, we fought very hard, for example, for the against the 15-year rule on voting rights, and the government were resisting that, just as they resisted votes for 16 to 18-year-olds. And I'm sure David Cameron has many regrets, and I suspect that those are two of them.
And I guess it all feeds back into your earlier points about British people didn't actually vote for the final package. Yeah. And these are the type of things that have to really be negotiated and thought about.
Yes, they do. And then people make an informed choice where you say, well, okay, we're going, and these are the implications. I think the fact that the Leave campaign, and I guess there's a real fundamental problem here with referenda, because different members of the Leave campaign were able to say different things every time, but because they're not a government, they're just a collection of individuals, they'll never be held accountable as to why there isn't £350 million for the National Health Service, or why you've got one of them saying, of course, we'll leave the single market, and others in the Leave campaign saying, no, nobody's talking about leaving the single market. They're not accountable. They disappear the day after the referendum, leaving everybody else to clean up the mess.
The questions are coming in thick and fast now. I guess we'll just take a couple more. Another question: what would happen if the UK starts building both physical and perceptive barriers between the UK and the EU?
Well, I think the biggest area of major concern around physical barriers is what happens to the border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. The whole Good Friday Peace Agreement was predicated on both sides being in the EU. There's a huge amount of cross-border movement, and it goes in both directions. And we are now going to have a situation where one side is not in the EU and the other isn't, and it's very, governments have made no decisions on this. They're saying, well, we don't want a hard border between the two, but it's actually going to be very difficult to see how you can manage, not to be, if you've got free movement into the Republic, how can you manage that? And it's going to be enormously damaging to the economy of Northern Ireland if there's any kind of hard border. And that has a particular resonance because what we know from the history of Northern Ireland is that when economic times are bad, that's when the sectarian trouble begins to really kick in. So there are a lot of very, very worried people in North. So I think that's with regard to that. I think I don't think the UK will particularly build barriers. I think actually just removing itself from the single market is kind of enough of a barrier in itself. But I think they are soon going to have to learn that if they want to continue exporting and have some kind of a deal, this is going to come with strings attached. The leavers are like people who they resign their Netflix subscription but still expect to be able to watch all the movies. Well, it is not going to happen. So I think they're soon going to find that, actually there are still going to be rules that they need to apply to if they continue to access the single market.
Thanks. We have our very last question now from Bart. How do you think lives of European people will be influenced by Brexit?
I suppose it rather depends how Brexit goes. I mean, assuming that we do leave, and I'm not completely certain that we will, but assuming that we do leave, and if things go badly wrong for the UK, then I think it will be held up as an example of why it was a really bad idea. And I think we're all very good at finding the things that Europe is bad at doing and offering criticisms. We tend to gloss over all the really important things, particularly with regard to the single market and movement of people, which we would see as a positive thing and not a negative, but all the stuff around the environment and so on. And I think it's possible that it would actually be very positive for the rest of Europe if things go badly for the UK. Now, if things go really well for the UK, then I think Europe's probably got a bit of a problem because then it will be held up as an example by the far right. But I just think even since the referendum, the election of Donald Trump and the things that he is doing and saying, I think has given a very clear sense of, I think, of European values. We are not a society that thinks healthcare is a privilege and carrying a gun is a right. We have our own set of values, and I think this may serve to reinforce those.
I think that's a very strong message to finish on. So Ros, thank you so much for an extremely interesting discussion and for taking part in our coffee break.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who's joined us on Facebook Live. Don't forget you can sign up to receive your free update of this discussion via the link in the comments box. Bye for now.